He's now a baseball executive and Baseball Hall of Famer. And on the day after Mariano Rivera and Mike Messina both go into the Hall of Fame, but Rivera as the first unanimous selected player, we had to have one of Cooperstown's finest on the program, Joe Torre. How are you, Joe?
I'm good, Rich. Thank you for that introduction. I have to now. You make me work harder.
You know what? I know how to butter up the guest, but it's well deserved. Your thoughts on Mo being the first unanimous selected member of the Baseball Hall of Fame is what, Joe?
Well, not surprised. Again, there are certain philosophies, I guess, on behalf of the writers that some don't feel that anybody should go in on the first ballot, and then I read something about, closer only pitches one inning, and but you have to realize how important those 3 outs were. I can tell you that. But he was, for as long as he pitched, Rich, and I know totals will show you that, he really never changed the kind of pitcher he was. There are so many pitchers, and especially, relief pitchers, who've had to change their style because their stuff was diminished. But Mariano really never, once he discovered that cutter, he just learned to do different things with it, and he just became a little more of a complete pitcher. But it didn't surprise me, really, that he was unanimous, because it'd be tough for me to be the one to say, well, give me a reason not to put him on, the ballot.
Right, and you mentioned the 3 outs being so important. When he first started as a reliever, it was really 6 outs you were getting from him on average prior to Wetland in 7th and 8th innings of that 96 season. When you first got to New York as the manager, and he was a kid that had 10 starts in the 95 season. What did you see the first time you laid eyes on Mariano Rivera, Joe?
Well, Rich, the first time I saw him was on TV the year before when he pitched against Seattle in that final game. I guess it was Game 5, and where the Yankees lost Game 5 after being up 2-0. And watched him come out of that bullpen in that extra inning game, and he looked pretty impressive. Of course, then you hear the stories about, surgery, and, he had some issues. So he was in spring training with us in '96, and, I'm a lifelong National League guy, and everything was new for me. And, he had no options left, so we knew he was on the team. There was some scuttlebutt, and when Jeter was scuffling all spring, there was some talk about sending him to the minor leagues and making a deal for a shortstop, and Mariano was mentioned in that, supposed deal. So, he was sort of excess baggage at that time, even though you knew he had some kind of value, but who would have dreamed that he would have be sitting there in the Hall of Fame at this point.
Joe, you just gave me a little bit of a heart attack, even though I know the way everything worked out. You're saying that there was a possibility of not starting Jeter in '96 and sending Rivera packing for his replacement? Is that what you're telling me, Joe? That was possible? That's
public knowledge. Yeah, toward the end of spring training, there was a comment from one of George's advisors that that Derek may not be ready because, he didn't have a particularly good spring. And I'll tell you, when that season started, it was like somebody just flipped a switch. But it got late in the spring, and I was one of the dissenters on that. I said, no, we've had him here all spring, and this kid shows up every day and really hasn't done anything wrong. He hasn't hit. But spring training doesn't really bother me. And, there was some conversation, and part of the conversation was, we have, all these relief pitchers. We had Wetland, we had Bob Wickman, and then, of course, Mariano Rivera, who we didn't know was going to be a closer, and we discovered that in '96 when, as you mentioned earlier, he was the setup man for Wetland. And so he was sort of a pitcher that we didn't know what his role was because, his options were used up. So he was obviously going to stay with the team. And there was some talk about, training him for a Fermin, I think it was, from Seattle. And again, I don't know how close that got to being made. I know it was talked about.
Joe Torre, Baseball Hall of Famer here on the Rich Eisen Show. What's your favorite Mariano story? When I guess you were in the crucible of a game, or you know that there was a big series finale coming up that you knew you had to use him, or you had used him so much and he basically told you he was ready. Give me something that maybe leaps out to your mind here, Joe, the day after him getting into the Hall unanimously.
Well, the one, Boston, it was such, eventually they caught up with him. You face the team 19 times. I'm not a big fan of, scheduling where you face so many one team so many times. And I remember this was a game during the season, and he had come in and and their Pedroia fouled off. It felt like 150 pitches. He just kept fouling them off. It was a one-run game, and he winds up walking Pedroia, and now Big Papi is the next hitter, and now there's either first and second or first, second, and third. I think it was first and second. The tying runs at second base, bottom of the ninth inning, Fenway Park. And I just go out to the mound, and I have no idea what I'm going to say. But I know he just really partially exhausted himself just trying to get Pedroia out. So I get out to the mound, and everybody comes in like you're going to listen to some revelation from their manager. And and all the other players are in there. And I said to Mo, I said, well, I guess you better get this guy out. And I left. And, but I just wanted to give him a chance to catch his breath. And I look at Jeter, and he always gives me some kind of an expression. And, he had a little smirk on his face and went back to his position. But that was the one that comes to mind for me, because it's a helpless feeling when he's going to be the one you're leaving in the game. And, he doesn't need any motivation, but I just thought I gave him a chance to catch his breath.
And now his name, Joe, is synonymous with, closing something out, whether it's not just baseball or sports or just life. Somebody goes into a meeting, and you got to bring in Rivera, right? You bring in Rivera to close it out. I mean, his name is synonymous with that now. And I'm wondering, when did you start realizing that about him? With
well,
Mo?
In that first year, obviously, when he pitched those seventh and eighth innings, and it felt like he pitched every single day. And Zimmer, who was my bench coach, we looked at each other when he'd come into the game, and you were sort of sorry you had to take him out, even though Wetland did a great job for us. And so when we started '97, and Wetland became a free agent. And in April, we were facing Oakland in Yankee Stadium, and he faced the same batter twice in the same game. And, for a closer, that's not a very good thing to do. So I said to him after the game, I said, pal, this is yours. So it may take you a while to get used to it. But it took a little adjusting for him, but I think he still wound up saving 40 games, I think, in 97. But he was special right from the get-go, and it's just a remarkable story when Mel Stottlemyre and he were in the bullpen, and he was just warming up, and he discovered that cutter. The cutter came on its own. They weren't working on anything.
No kidding.
And yeah, that's how it. Hey, what do you think of that? Let's do it again. Let's see. And he just had that natural cutter, and that became his lifeline.
It sure did. I mean, my gosh, and I'm appreciative. A couple minutes left with Joe Torre, Baseball Hall of Famer, that you mentioned Mel Stottlemyre's name. Certainly with Mike Mussina going in as well, together with Mariano Rivera. You're coming back from Mel Stottlemyre's funeral. I wonder what Mel would have thought to hear about the news of Mo being unanimous and he goes in with Mike Mussina. Joe.
Well, he would have been very, very proud of both of them. Mel was a special, not only a special pitching coach, just a special person. He treated guys, whether you won 20 games or just pitched 20 innings, like you were the most important pitcher on our staff. And he's going to be missed. It was a very emotional day yesterday, but he certainly would be very proud of these two guys going in.
Yeah, and his boat's name was Mo in the Ninth, right? That's what David Cohn
That's right,
tweeted out
Mo in
today.
the Ninth. He named it. We got him a boat when he retired. And, Mariano was funny because I tried to reach him yesterday, and not surprised, it went to voicemail, and I sent a text message, and then all of a sudden I get a phone call, and he had me on speaker with his whole family, which was pretty cool. It was a great experience for me, and he was very, very excited. Yeah, and I said to him, I said, the one thing you're the first unanimous choice. There may be others, I said, but nobody will ever be the first. So it was quite an accomplishment.
Also, the last guy to wear number 42, Joe, too.
That's right.
You
the
know,
last guy to wear Jackie's number, and he's certain Jackie would have been proud also.
So special. It really, really is. And it's special for me personally and the show to have you call in the day after like this, Joe. I really appreciate it.
Anytime, Rich. Haven't seen you since we were walking down the street in L.A. that one day.
That's right. It's been a while, so let's make sure it doesn't go this long again. I really appreciate the chat, the time, and the memories.
Enjoy the Super Bowl.
I will do that. You got a thought on it, Joe? I know you're a big football guy.
Well,
you got a thought on it?
I just, Los Angeles, there's such an up-and-coming team, and they got their taste last year. But the one thing I've always admired about, Bobby Cox for one, and Bill Belichick is the fact that his teams play every single play of every single game, and it's so admirable for me as a sports person to really watch how they go about their business.
Yeah. Do you have a relationship with Bill, or have you met him a few times?
I do. Yeah. In fact, I did his charity during the playoffs up there in Boston. He's been a friend. He's visited our spring training, and I know he's visited LaRusse's spring training. He's a big baseball fan, but he's remarkable in his career and how it stays brand new for him all the time.
Joe, let's chat again soon. Thanks again for the call. Travel well.
Okay, Rich.
You bet.
Take care.
That's Joe Torre, Baseball Hall of Famer.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.